Really quick, I'm going to be redoing all my old videos that I had deleted about a year ago. So the technical videos that in regards to building your machines, those are all going to be remade. The first thing I just want to show really quick before I tell you where to buy, best place to buy the frames and all the parts. Just so you understand why you're going to use certain frames. If you already have a bunch of machines, I've talked to a lot of people who have all these machines and they're all set up the same, or they have the wrong setup for the frame. Inherently, you're going to have fucking problems because you're using the wrong frame to begin with. The geometry of the frame is things like height, which is from the base to the top of the spring seat, or the length, which is from the center of the tube to the edge of the spring seat. And then there's another way that I like to prefer to measure the length is the position of the sidearm, particularly where the front post is, in relation to the center of the front core. That right there, at first glance, will tell you what that frame is best used for. If this is center with the front coil to slightly behind, like the back edge of it, of the core, you know, from here to here, the center of this, that's a short stroke. Just because it's compact and it doesn't leave you a lot of room for stretching the rear spring and getting lots of throw on it. So right off the bat, that's going to be a sign for a liner. As far as the height goes and what coils you're going to stick into it, depend on the height from here to here. These coils, of course, did not come in this machine, and the way I set this up was because it came with some Chinese 1 1/4, which are slightly off. But the yoke on this, because it's an alloy frame, was like a thin ass plate. And this is a 1 mil plate, and it probably wasn't even that. You want a yoke with as much girth as possible, because the mass should ideally be as much as the core that's in the coil. So you want to go as big as you can. So I went with a US 1 inch, and then I put a great big fat thing on here so that I could raise it up to the height from here to here. Your yoke plus your core plus the armature thickness, because they come in all kinds of thicknesses. So when you change these, you're going to have to change your armature and maybe add a yoke. So finding when you change these out, you find, they don't always tell you how thick these are, which kind of makes it a hard ass game. This plus this plus this must, right here at the top of this, has to meet the top of this. When this is in a horizontal to the base, all three of these add up to this height. Shaders, most of the Chinese frames are going to be that type of geometry. Finding a liner geometry is kind of tricky. As you see, the center of your post is out in front edge of that, so you got a lot of stroke length right here. You can see I even add by inverting my core, my armature, sorry, which adds a little more length, thus relieving some of the tension in the spring. Again, there's a probably 2 1/4 millimeter yoke in there. So because that's out in front, that's a shader. Because that's in the center or back, that's a liner. The farther out it goes, this is out in the front, so it's going to be a long stroke. The longer the stroke will be, obviously that's a color shader. If here are some identical frames, you can see this is shorter than that. You can see where this hole is in front of the core, so that's a long stroke color shader. This one is off center to the rear of the coil, so that's going to be a short stroke liner. That's the number one sign that tells you what it's going to be used for. I'm going to show you where to get what frames and what uses for everything. So I mean, you really don't need to know that much. I'll tell you exactly what companies are reputable and sell a frame best for a liner, best for a shader, best for long strokes. But just in case you want to adjust the machines you have, take a look at them. Take a look at where that post sets in relation to the center of the core, and you might have it set up wrong. If your post is in front of the center of the front coil and you got it set up as a liner, that might be affecting some things. And especially if it's a short frame and you're trying to make a long stroke out of it, a shader out of a liner machine, you're really working against yourself. Other than that, all the frames that I show you are going to be cast, because bent frames or weld ups include human factors, which mean the machines are going to have a lot of bad shit to them. Cast machines are all the same, so once I find a good one, I use it. That's why I only use certain frames. You'll see, you know, the walkers all the time for this. For long strokes, I like to use these for short coil shaders, and basically I only use certain frames because I've bought hundreds of fucking frames. Well, I've spent hundreds of dollars. I don't know about hundreds of different types of frames, but a fucking lot. So I know 95% are shit and the 5% that are worth using. So the first video I'm going to make is where to get your frames, and then I'll go into where to get certain parts and how to assemble everything. Okay, I'm going to show you one seller on eBay that I trust, and get stuff to you really cheap and pretty quick. Not every machine, like I said, that I've tried, but I have used probably 90% of the manufacturers. There's only so many manufacturers of the equipment, versus, you know, when you sell stuff on eBay, you're not getting it from the seller. You're getting it from the seller, you're not getting it from the manufacturer. So you're dealing with a lot of different people who don't really know a whole lot about anything. They're just selling stuff. The I'll mention machines from the top 3 companies. Only 2 of them are really usable. One of them, it's hit and miss as to the geometry of the frames, and I'll show you really quickly. I'll just go through the machines this seller has. Okay, so right here, you've seen this before. You'll probably see different ones. The company makes about 5-6 different machines, and they're all cast iron frames. They're all, except for 1 or 2, have a geometry for a liner. Say about 3 of them are going to have liner geometries. These are great for liners. They have good, strong coils. Some of the strongest coils I've seen, Chinese or anyone else. They have real iron cores. They have real 24 gauge wraps. They're 1.5 inch tall, so they got lots of mass. They're very strong cores. Good straight iron frames. The only thing you got to change on these are the fucking springs. I like heavier springs on my longer strokes, but as long as you don't go for a color packer and just use these for a shader, great. All you need to do is change out the springs because they're kind of crudely cut. But right there, 12 bucks, and you got a cast iron frame with good ass coils. Now they make all their machines look kind of the same. I'll show you another set real quick. Now the third seller that I said is hit and miss. All their machines kind of have this look to them, like a hazy gray and black kind of charcoal looking effect to them. Okay, they are solid, they are straight, they're welded up very nicely, but most of their machines have fucked up geometry. Because the back end will be short, but the front end will be way out front. This one right here is okay. This is one of the few that is usable, and you can use it for a color packer. You just need to add weight to find a heavier armature bar that fits. Other than that, you just need to change out the coils. But the frame itself is that frame right there. Not every frame made by these people, but that frame is good for a long stroke. me show you some more. Okay, when you see those machines that look like this or look like they're got paint splattered all over them, those are made by Zyman Panther, and they make some great frames. They're one piece, they're cast, nice frames. Their coils suck because they are wound on bobbins and they're thin wires, so they're weak ass coils, but they make nice thick armature bars on a lot of their machines. They make the walkers that I use a lot. If you just want the frames without buying the machine, you can get the frame on T-Mart for like $7, but for $10 you can get the armature bar and the frame plus the vice screws and a few pieces of hardware, but the coil's got to go. Okay, like I said, those one machines, you got to get new springs. As far as these go, you'll see these all over. How to know the good ones from the bad ones, because you'll see a lot of dials. The black machine that I showed you with great coils, same company right here. This is their heat treated model. Again, I showed you in that heat treatment video how to make them look good. They don't polish their steel, so it looks shitty. It's kind of brown and there's a few noticeable blues and shit in there, but you really need to polish that metal if you want to heat treat it, make it look good. This is fucking $12. Good, great coils, one piece solid iron, everything's great. Change out the springs and you got yourself a color shader. I'm skipping by everything I don't give a shit for. I would, you know, I'm only going to tell you about what I know of. Again, these are made by that one company, that gray and whatever look. Again, look at their geometry issue. This is a great solid frame. I mean, look at this. Look at that. Okay, this is a very solid construction. They're straight, solid one-piece iron frames. Nice armature bars. But look at, they put this long stroke on here. Okay, let's see if I can find a back. Yeah, they don't have any back end shots. Here we go. Okay, if you shorten it, recess this armature, you can get some more stroke out of it. But look where they put this fucking side mount. It's way back here behind here. So this contact is jacked out like that when it should be at a 45-degree angle. If they tweak this plate out, that'd be a great machine, but it's fucked up. So that's when I wouldn't buy, unless you can cut the side off and remount it if you're into doing that. But then you'd be making your own if you could do that. Okay, here's that other company. They're all black with the blue capacitor. These are all cast, one piece iron frames, 1.5 inch tall, strong ass coils. Like I said, very good coils. The only issue, again, would, if you want to call it an issue, is their some of their armatures are a little lightweight. The Bulldog is kind of borderline. It's right on the core, maybe slightly forward, so you can use it as a liner or a shader. The Homa, this is the one you want to use if you're going to make a liner, because you can see it's slightly center to back of the post. One piece cast iron, great. So if you want the iron, you want these for a liner. As you can see, there's I guess that goes back pretty far. That's good. So they make great. They make probably some of the best machines as far as not having to do anything to them other than the springs for $12 and then tune them yourself. I mean, that's fucking a great deal. Okay, here's another one, a dial with some holes drilled into it, but basically same deal. Holes drilled into it, same deal. This frame is that one that I used to make. Again, I just put fat ass yoke on there and some short coils. It's a straight frame, it's alloy, so you do need a yoke. Like I said, just do what I do. It's hard to find a lot of liners. This is one that's usable. I think she carries one other model made by those people. I'll just whip through and find some more. Again, here's that one company. As you can see, they got a liner spring, but this is way the fuck out here. Lots of throw right here. This frame would be great for a color shader, but you got to get a different armature and put a long spring on the front. Probably a really long spring, because this is just so fucking far out there. If it was even like 2-3 millimeters back, it would still be way out there for a color packer. So you got to get a much heavier armature on that and a lot longer spring. Fuck all these bent frame things. This one is made by the same people with the cast iron one piece. Okay, again, it's all set up as a shader. So the shader, this is a shader, the J-frame is a shader, the Homa is a liner, and the Bulldog can be a shader or a liner. And that's another frame made by the gray machine people with the red washers. Again, armature looks a little light. That frame right there would make a pretty good color packer. It's way out there. Just put a heavier armature bar on it and you can use that for a color packer. Change the springs. The springs I got on there are look like liner springs. Nice long frame. Here's one just like my liner. You could use this one. Just need to change out the coils. Actually, you probably could get away with those coils because they're not bad. And when you're only using a short stroke like a single pass liner, you don't need really strong coils. That's why a lot of coils are 6 layers. So these Chinese layers will probably work. And if you want to change them out, just put some short coils on them with a fat yoke. I think that's most of those black machines. Here's some with the holes drilled in it. But the Body Art site, she sells all those black machines really cheap. Okay, the other place you can get some frames. If you just want to get the frames or parts to put on your shit, like I said, I showed you those other ones that are good to go. You only need to change out springs. I wouldn't get springs here. I would get springs from someplace else. I'll throw up a link. But as far as parts that fit Chinese machines, these people, T-Mart sells Chinese machines, but they're not all that great. There are certain ones. All the machines that I've built in the past year, these guys just happen to carry, for some strange reason, the same frames stripped down, just a frame. They have that J-frame, they have the short walker, they have the clipper. These are like $750 and they're cast frames. So you have to also get all the parts. But they do have armatures on here. They have speed bars. Every single frame I've used, they happen to have on here. So you can get all the parts. Okay. These are long speed bars. It's like 34. So I would use this like on a, if I was going to make a liner out of the clipper frame. But the clipper's got geometry for a shader, so never mind that. So T-Mart will have parts, they'll have machines. As you see here, that's like $12.80 for, and it's worth $7.50 for just the frame. But if you buy the machine, you also have the screws, you have the armature, you have a few more parts. All you need to do is replace the coil and then shim it up with a yoke. I'm not sure if they have yokes on here that would be perfect, because you really need like a 2mm yoke if you're going to replace the coils. I've seen just about every other part on here. Okay, here we go. Here's 2mm yokes. That's another $5. So $7.50 for just the frame. Another few dollars for the yoke, another $6. I'm sorry, $6 for a yoke, another $3 for an armature. So So you have to buy all the little parts and then build your machine. But these are where you can get the parts. Okay, for springs, I like to get, aside from making them yourself, what I do is I get them from Infinite Irons. Okay, because I use true blued steel spring stock. You can buy just the spring stock, but they also have their own cut springs. Now you need to know exactly the length and thickness of the springs that you want to use. They have one-piece springs. Those are very tricky because you got to know the exact length from your spring deck to the mounting nut on the armature and the reach. So those are kind of tricky. So I would just go with the 2 pieces. Okay, so you need to know your thickness, whether it's 18 or 20. Like I said, it's easier if you're just going to go with a liner or shader, just keep it 18. If you're going to do a liner, then you want it to be wider. It'll say right here, liner shader, 18 or 20, curved or flat. You don't need a curved rear end, rear spring. Front springs, you can get them rolled, might as well, no big deal. But you have a lot of choices. 1.15 stock liner springs, which is 1.2 inch, it's 1 1/4 inch long, you know, all the way up to 1 3/4 inch long. So you need to know the exact length that you want to use. You can see they have a lot of cuts going on. So once you know the exact length, these would be liners, short and stocky, shaders in the middle, and then your color shaders down here. So $3 for a really good spring, so $6 for a pair. Most of the stuff on Infinite Irons is either pre-built custom machines or parts. So I mean, but you can get springs here.